Hey guys, Holly here. Welcome back to the channel. So today I want to talk briefly on insulin resistance. And interestingly enough, I have done so much research over the last almost year now, since I have put on about 10 pounds, and most of you know this because I talk about it rather frequently in quite a few of my videos. So I have tried virtually everything. I keep trying, I keep researching, and so lately I have come to the conclusion that I think it's quite possible that I may be dealing with a very minimal amount of insulin resistance. So insulin resistance is just simply where your pancreas makes more insulin to extra insulin to make up for that deficiency. So to make up for the insulin resistance, the pancreas overproduces. And so basically this doesn't necessarily mean that you'll ever have prediabetes or diabetes. It just simply means that your body is struggling with this imbalance at the present time. So, I'm not a doctor and I'm very new to researching this, so forgive me because I don't know a whole lot. So chances are, if you're diabetic or you're close to someone that has diabetes, type 1 or type 2, you probably know a heck of a lot more about this than I do. But I've got to thinking, and after doing so much research, I really think that I might have a very, very minimal case of insulin resistance. So essentially, over time, this can lead to prediabetes. It doesn't necessarily mean it will. A lot of times insulin resistance can precede, it can come before prediabetes by like 10 to 15 years or even more. But it's not necessarily going to lead to diabetes. So, and then prediabetes leads to type 2 diabetes, obviously. So, the reason I came to this conclusion is because I don't really necessarily have a lot of the telltale signs of insulin resistance. Now, some of these symptoms are things like skin tags. I haven't really been getting any of that. It is a lot of things, really. And diabetes symptoms too. You can have things like blurred vision, excessive thirst, carb cravings, excessive hunger. Not really experiencing anything too much like that. And a lot of times insulin resistance is actually very symptom free. You don't actually even have symptoms, and so you're not aware that you have it. But coming into understanding that this is a very common problem, and I'm really surprised I never looked more into this. Now, I have known about this for a while, and I've very briefly researched here and there little tidbits about insulin resistance, but in my mind I was just thinking there's no way I would have that. I'm so active, I eat so healthy, I take all these supplements, and I do all these things, right? I meditate and all of these natural healing remedies, etc. And I'm thinking in my mind, no one in our family's ever had diabetes or anything like that. It's nowhere in our genetic line, but this day and age, the lifestyle that we are exposed to, I do believe is leading us to this excessive increase in insulin resistance and prediabetes and type 2 diabetes, and really type 1 and type 2. But really, all diseases, in my opinion, I do believe that they primarily come from the toxic environment that we live in and that we're exposed to. So ultimately, what I'm doing in terms of seeing about the insulin resistance problem and kind of experimenting with it is I'm not going to approach getting a test for it just yet, because a lot of times if it's really mild, and this is a lot of cases, it won't even show up on a blood test. So unless I start developing more telltale signs of having insulin resistance or something of that nature, I will get it tested. But for now, I'm going to experiment and just see what happens. So things in which you can do to try and manage insulin resistance, even at a very low level, which I do believe mine is a very low level, but I do believe that it could very well be there. Now, there's a slim possibility maybe it's not even there. Maybe this weight gain is something else. But after seeing different doctors, after experimenting with food sensitivities, trying all kinds of fat burners, exercise, every kind of diet I can possibly think of, doing all this research, the only other thing I could possibly think that might be contributing to this is insulin resistance. So a lot of you know that I have been recently diagnosed with a very mild case of hypothyroidism, in which I have been on medication now for almost 2 months, and I have not lost a pound, but all of my other symptoms have regulated back to normal. Now, I also think there could be a slim possibility that maybe later down the road I might lose a couple of extra pounds from being on the hypothyroidism medication. So levothyroxine weight loss is a very common side effect of that medication, because a lot of times you can gain this weight when you have hypothyroidism, and it can be very slow with your symptoms returning to normal. But my periods have gone back to being completely normal, just the way they were before, and all these other symptoms have subsided, like dry skin, and my hair was starting to thin in one spot and things like that. So all of that has really gone away, and I wasn't really having fatigue that a lot of people get with the hypothyroidism or anything like that. As a matter of fact, I actually didn't have very many symptoms at all, especially anything that would lead me to believe, hey, I have hypothyroidism. I would not have known if it weren't for this weight gain. So I am still taking the medication for that, and I plan to do that for a little while, at least, probably say 6 months, give or take, and kind of go from there and see if I want to try to back off. I've been doing a lot of other natural things that I will get into in another video, but I do think about the insulin resistance possibility. So, things that we can do to help manage insulin resistance. So obviously the first thing is going to be healthy diet and exercise. Well, duh. So, I look up these things, and things like meditation, stress management, etc., blah, blah, blah. Things like trying to sleep enough, but obviously for me, if you guys watch a lot of my videos, then you know that I am an insomniac, and I have a lot of trouble with sleeping, whether I take medication or not. So I do struggle with that, and then I also do kind of have a hard time managing stress, but I do have quite a bit of stress in my life, but I feel like I'm really good at handling it, and I have a lot of really great coping mechanisms and things that I do that assist me with that. So ultimately, just basic lifestyle, everyday stuff, but sometimes it's not enough. So as far as different supplements that we can use, so far, according to my research, things like L-lysine, vitamin C, vitamin B6 is a really important one as well, and vitamin D is always going to be in there. It's always going to go with really any kind of ailment you're experiencing. You need so much vitamin D in your body. So, and that needs to also come through the sunlight, but it also needs to come through supplementation as well. So I think it needs to come through both sources, so internally and externally, if that makes sense. And then there are some other things I've recently researched as well. So I've ordered a supplement called, Insulin, and it's like L-lysine with vitamin C, and there's like one other thing in there. So I'll do a separate video on that. And then another thing is myoindutoroinositol, and I think that's how you pronounce it, but I've done a separate video on this before, and this is something a lot of women will take for PCOS, and most people that have PCOS have some level of insulin resistance, so those two things kind of go together. And I think there could be some possibility I could have PCOS as well. I don't really know. A lot of times doctors are really hesitant to try and test for something like that, because it's like I tried to talk to my doctor about it, and he was like, well, I can certainly tell you that every woman who's ovulating does have ovarian cysts at some point here and there. And I'm like, okay. So yeah, I mean, every doctor is different, and a lot of times doctors don't really want to waste their time on trying to figure out why you're gaining weight, especially if you're not obese, just because it's like they want to help you, but in the same point, there are just so many different things that it could be. So, and the thing is, like, PCOS is so common, insulin resistance is so common, all of these things are so common, and so sometimes there's just not even necessarily a very accurate test to tell you what's wrong. And so what's really hard is sometimes you really have to troubleshoot, and sometimes it takes a very long time to figure it out. I know for me, I feel like this has taken me forever. I've been going at gaining weight now for about 11 months, close to 11 months, and it's been really hard for me, and I feel like I can do all these things right, but I'm still struggling. And I feel like I've researched that with insulin resistance, that is the concept. You can have a very hard time trying to lose weight, or you might keep gaining weight and be doing everything right and just have no earthly idea why it is that you're gaining this weight. So that's one reason why I'm experimenting to see what happens here. So I'm also, let's see, I ordered another supplement called GOLO Release, and some of you may have heard of the GOLO diet. I don't know if you have or not. I will probably do a different video on the GOLO diet and GOLO Release whenever I start taking it and, you know, seeing how it's working for me. So GOLO is essentially, it's primarily a diet for people that have insulin resistance or diabetes or prediabetes, and it's basically, it's not a very strict diet, but it does have kind of like supposedly some calorie limits, which I don't really follow calorie limits because I'm so active. I don't count my calories. I'm just very sensible about how I eat, and I don't eat till I'm really full. I just eat till I'm satisfied, and I eat as much as I feel like I need to eat, because that's really, really important. And I feel like, you know, society tells us just eat less, but in reality, you know, that's just going to cause you problems because your metabolism is going to slow down because it's adjusting to a lesser amount of energy coming in. So you really don't want to do that. You really don't. Caloric restriction it's very controversial, but, you know, like I say, I'm not a nutritionist or a dietitian, but I just know so much of this from personal experience and from helping other people and watching other people and sharing experiences. So GOLO Release is another supplement that I will be experimenting with. So I have been taking the myonitro and inositol now for several days, and I was taking this before and I stopped taking it to start taking something else. So now I'm taking this again. So I don't really know if it's helping or not. I really don't know. But here in the next few days, I'm going to add in probably the GOLO Release first and kind of just see what happens. And some of you may judge me for this, but I have also ordered some hydroxycut. I've ordered a couple different ones. One is hydroxycut organic, and the other one is like hydroxycut for women or whatever. And so I'll be talking about those separately as well. So I don't really know if I'm going to be taking these in conjunction or not. I do take quite a few supplements, so I try not to take too many at one time. So I'll probably be waiting a while on the hydroxycut. We'll see. But hydroxycut is really essentially just basically a whole bunch of caffeine and coffee and green tea extract, and it's got a few other things in there too, but that's something you definitely want to be careful with. I've never tried it before. I don't really know if it's going to help or not, but in the future I will be looking at trying that too. So looking at trying some different things, but you know, if you're going to try any of this stuff, definitely talk to your doctor. And you know, it's a disclaimer, you can't, you know, take my word for everything because I'm not a doctor and I don't have all of this education experience. So, but from where I stand and from the research I've done, this is what I'm going to do. Experiment with trying to figure out, first, whether or not I have insulin resistance, and secondly, what I can do about it if I do. So I will definitely keep you guys updated on my journey with this experimentation. And like I say, I have a few different things I'm going to try, and most of it is supplement related. A little bit of it is diet related. There's a lot of controversy around carb intake and people with insulin resistance and diabetes, and so my personal opinion on that is I don't think you should eliminate carbs. I think just eating, you know, basically just complex carbs and making sure that you're doing whole grains, no added sugars, and not eating white bread, bleached flours, things like that. So no refined carbohydrates like that, but whole fruits, not so much fruit juices. I've pretty much eliminated fruit juices at the moment because of the potential of the insulin resistance, and it's just not good for insulin resistance. So I do incorporate some low carb meals into my diet, but I'm not a big fan of low carbs. I'm hugely not a fan of keto or paleo. Paleo is a little bit better than keto, but you know, you don't want to go too restrictive because it's just going to put you in a fight or flight mode, and then that in turn can actually cause you to hold on to more fat, and it's a domino effect. There are so many things that you have to be mindful of when you're thinking about a diet or trying a new diet or a new lifestyle. or cutting out things in general. So right now what I'm doing is just making sure that any carbs I eat are strictly, very strictly, just, whole grains all the way, brown rice, no white rice if I'm going to eat rice at all, and no fruit juices. And my diet was pretty healthy to begin with, but now what I'm doing is, before I would eat say some healthy, all natural cookies or cake, as long as all the ingredients were clean and there was nothing artificial in it, I would eat it. But now what I'm doing is not even eating really any of that, unless it's no sugar, but definitely no artificial sweetener either. So if it's going to be sweetened with something, it has to be sweetened with stevia or something that's really, really low glycemic index. So I'm trying to think, there's another one. Allulose is a good one. A lot of people consume allulose when they are on the keto diet and stuff like that. So sweeteners that are just not going to be an issue, like monk fruit, stuff like that. There are so many different ones I could name off. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing for right now, adding in the new supplements. Most of what I'm doing is going to be supplement related. So definitely stay tuned to figure out what happens with this, and I will let you know. I know there are a lot of people out there that are probably struggling with insulin resistance as well, and I'm sure many of you have experimented also. So yeah, we're gonna see what happens, and I have a lot of really interesting, cool videos coming up, so stay tuned for that, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching.